You know that feeling when you're watching a play or a movie and you just feel a certain way, but you can't quite explain why? Well, today we're pulling back the curtain on scenic design. We're going to reveal the hidden language of the stage, all the secret techniques used to control exactly what you see and maybe, more importantly, what you feel.
Okay, so to get this, the very first thing you have to understand is that on a well-designed stage, nothing is a coincidence. Every single visual element is a deliberate, calculated choice. Just take a look at this. You've got this lone figure on a huge structure, lit by just one single beam of light. Does he feel powerful to you, or maybe kind of lost? Isolated or important? Whatever you're feeling, that reaction isn't random. Nope, it's been carefully engineered.
Yeah, this is the work of a hidden artist. Someone who uses every shadow, every single object, and even the empty bits of the stage to guide your eye and mess with your emotions, all from behind the scenes.
So what are their secrets? Well, it all really boils down to one incredibly powerful idea. The audience never looks around randomly. The designer decides where you look. They are essentially the puppet master of your focus.
So let's meet this mastermind. In the world of theater and design, they're called a scenographer. And trust me, they wear a lot of different hats.
Scenography. What is it? Think of it as the art of composition, but for a three-dimensional space. You know, a painter controls a canvas, a filmmaker controls a frame, but a scenographer? They control an entire world, and by doing that, they control your experience inside of it.
So for starters, they're an architect. They're the ones building the actual physical structures and environments where the story takes place. They create the literal foundation of this world. And then they're also a cinematographer. They carefully compose every single angle and sightline. They're deciding what you get to see, what stays hidden, and how it's all framed to create the most impact.
But maybe the most important hat they wear. They are a psychologist. They have to understand how space, shape, and scale affect our emotions, and then they use that knowledge to make you feel tension, or joy, or dread, all without a single word ever being spoken.
Okay, so that's the what, but how do they actually pull it off? Let's start with one of the most basic, but also one of the most powerful tools they have, composition. Or, to put it simply, where you put stuff.
I want you to think of a stage not as just one big space, but as different zones. Now, yeah, you have the technical terms like upstage and downstage, but a designer thinks more in terms of a foreground, a midground, and a background. And each one of these areas has a totally different psychological job to do.
The foreground, the part that's closest to us, that's for intimacy, for secrets. When a character is here, they feel emotionally close. The midground is pretty straightforward. That's where most of the main action unfolds. But the background, the background is so crucial. It gives us context, it builds the world. So here's the key takeaway. Importance on stage is created by position, not just by what someone says.
All right, let's do a little experiment. Look at these two images. On one side, a grand wedding staircase. On the other, this sterile corporate waiting room. What feeling do they have in common? Notice how everything is mirrored, right? Perfectly balanced. This symmetry subconsciously tells our brains that this world is orderly, it has rules, it's controlled.
Now, what about these? A chaotic apartment building, a scene of total domestic upheaval. It's all unbalanced, things are scattered everywhere, you can feel the tension, the realism, that sense of unpredictability, can't you? This is asymmetry. It's the visual language of chaos, of nature, of messy human life.
And what you just felt? Well, that perfectly illustrates the two core types of visual balance. Symmetrical balance feels controlled, sometimes even rigid. Asymmetrical balance feels way more dynamic, more true to life. A designer is constantly choosing between these two to subconsciously tune your emotional state.
But here's a cool thing. It's not just about what's on the stage, it's also about what isn't. We call this negative space, and it is incredibly powerful. All that emptiness isn't wasted space at all. It draws our eye right to the subject and builds this powerful feeling of anticipation. We're just waiting for that space to be filled.
So we're moving beyond just arranging objects. Now we're talking about how designers shape the very dimensions of the space itself to manipulate our feelings. And this is where scale and depth come into play.
Scale sounds technical, but it's super simple. It's just the size of the set and the props in it compared to a person. And by playing with that relationship, a designer can make a character seem either like a hero or completely insignificant.
Think about it like this. When you put a single actor in a vast, overwhelming space, you instantly create feelings of isolation, loneliness, and powerlessness. The environment itself basically becomes another character in the story, an oppressive one.
But if you shrink that space down, you get the exact opposite effect. When you confine characters in a small, cramped area, you instantly ramp up the pressure. It can feel intimate or confrontational or even claustrophobic. The walls are literally closing in.
But here's the thing. A stage is often just a shallow box. So designers have to be masters of illusion. They use all these clever tricks to create a feeling of depth where there isn't any. They'll add levels, like stairs and platforms, to force our eyes to travel up and back. They'll overlap objects, because our brain knows one thing has to be in front of the other. They use forced perspective, like a hallway that gets narrower in the back, to mimic how we see distance in real life. Even simple changes in light and texture can trick our brain into seeing a world that's much, much bigger than it really is.
So after this quick tour of the designer's toolkit, the goal is for you to leave here with a new way of seeing. The magic isn't just in what's being said on stage, but where and how it's all being presented.
There's this fantastic quote that just sums it all up perfectly. The art isn't about building a big set, it's about building a feeling. It's all about using psychology to create an emotional illusion that feels even more real than reality itself.
So, I'll leave you with this question. The next time you're watching a play or a movie or even an opera, ask yourself, why is that character standing right there? Why is this room so big or so small? Why does it feel so balanced or so chaotic? Because now you know the language. So, what are you going to see differently?